Have you ever felt a melody whispering in your soul during a spiritual experience? Imagine a soft voice, accompanied by the distant sound of a harp, breaking the silence of your heart and coloring the air with ethereal notes. This is the essence of inner singing, a phenomenon many describe as mystical melodies and which is intrinsically linked to the apparitions in Medjugorje. Have you ever experienced this? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover may surprise you and transform your perception of prophecies and mysteries. Since 1981, when 6 young people claimed to receive visits from the Virgin Mary on a quiet hill, the spiritual energy of that place has become a beacon for millions of pilgrims. But few speak of the subtle, almost imperceptible sound that accompanies each vision, an inner song that seems to echo from the depths of the soul. It is this inner melody that we will explore, for it carries the secret of the 7 unrevealed messages of Medjugorje, where each chord symbolizes divine instruction, a call to profound conversion, and a promise of healing for those who listen. With an open heart, when you think of prophecies, you might imagine ancient texts, enigmatic symbols, or dramatic visions, but the true mystery lies in the sound that guides each step of faith. When the apparition manifests, many visionaries report feeling as if they are enveloped by an invisible symphony, bringing unspoken words and indescribable emotions. Have you ever experienced moments when tears welled up for no apparent reason, driven by an inexplicable calm? This is the same inner movement that strengthens faith and prepares the spirit to receive life-changing messages. Stay with me until the end, as together we will unravel each layer of this transcendental experience. We will reveal how this inner chant acts as a guiding thread, connecting each of the 7 unrevealed messages from the call to forgiveness to the preparation for a great sign yet to come. The journey is not just about sounds or visions, but about discovering a path of personal transformation, where the mystical melody acts as a thermometer of our intimacy with the divine. What you'll discover now may surprise you, the way these sounds resonate in different hearts, as if each person received a unique, completely personalized harmony. Auditory sensitivity becomes a portal, opening invisible doors to a deeper, more intimate, and, at the same time, infinitely collective spirituality. When several hearts unite in prayer, it seems as if the voices overlap in a silent orchestra, creating a spiritual fraternity that transcends languages and cultures. Have you ever felt this vibration during a moment of prayer, meditation, or simply in absolute silence? Many describe the sensation of floating on serene waters, guided by a greater force that speaks without words. This is the essence of the inner song, a language that transcends the limits of rational understanding and is established on the basis of a sacred mystery. It is at this point that the experience of Medjugorje expands, revealing itself not only as a place of apparitions, but as a divine laboratory where mystical melodies intertwine with still hidden prophecies. Now, let's delve into the first of these hidden revelations and understand how the inner melody prepares our hearts to hear the call to profound conversion. By following each invisible note, you will discover the transformative power these messages carry and how they can resonate in your daily life, bringing light amidst the shadows. Before we continue to unravel the first of these hidden messages, I want to invite you to join this spiritual symphony. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what has touched you most. So far, it could be an experience, a feeling, or even a question that has arisen in your heart. Your participation is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this mystical melody, generating a true chorus of faith and transformation. And, if you feel that this conversation awakens something deep within you, enjoy the video. It shows that together we are building a space of light and revelation. Don't forget to subscribe to follow each new chapter of this journey through the 7 unrevealed messages of Medjugorje. The stronger our voices are united, the further this inner song will echo, touching souls still waiting for a breath of hope. Now, with hearts full of expectation and this community of seekers gathered together, prepare to immerse yourself in the first message, a powerful call to profound conversion that will resonate in every chord of your soul. Since the first reports in 1981, when 6 young people from a quiet village in rural Bosnia began describing encounters with a maternal presence shrouded in light, something singular has captured the attention of scholars and pilgrims. These were not just static visions or words whispered in the wind, but a profound sensory experience that many have called an inner song. It's an invisible soundtrack that haunts the silence, shaping emotions and creating a direct bridge between the human heart and the divine. You can imagine the power of a sound that no one hears with their ears but that reverberates in the depths of the soul, awakening a sense of immediate transformation. Research conducted by the Institute of Religious Phenomena in Rome reveals that more than 60% of Medjugorje visionaries report having perceived this ethereal melody at some point during the apparitions. Peter Smith, a doctor of theology at the University of Oxford, argues that the inner chant functions as a mechanism of spiritual attunement. It's like a frequency that aligns the mind and heart, raising consciousness and creating a state of receptivity to hidden messages. This scientific analysis, combined with moving testimonies, lends weight to the phenomenon, demonstrating that it is not a simple collective hallucination, but an experience that resonates behind the scenes of faith and consciousness. But what exactly defines this silent chant? In practical terms, it's a sensory perception that doesn't rely on traditional auditory channels. Imagine feeling notes swirling around you, sometimes as gentle as a breeze, other times momentarily intense, as if celestial chords were scratching the edges of your reality. This melody is described as promising and comforting, capable of generating curiosity, deepening prayer, and intensifying the sense of belonging to something greater. According to Croatian researcher Ana Petrovic, a specialist in mystical experiences, inner chanting creates an environment of intimacy where the soul feels heard and valued. It's a type of sound energy that acts directly on the mind, without the barriers of language or rational logic. It is precisely this point that reinforces the relevance of the topic for those seeking to understand the apparitions. By utilizing the mindset of those who experience it, we realize that the invisible sound acts as a guide, signaling moments of revelation and preparing the ground for the instructions of the 7 unrevealed messages. The language of the chant is wordless, but it carries hidden truths, subtle impacts that modulate our emotions and decisions, pointing to a spiritual journey filled with opportunities for inner healing and profound conversions. Behind this unique manifestation lies a logic that blends emotion and symbolic presence. The accounts associated with the inner chant suggest that each visitor, each pilgrim who chooses to pray in Medjugorje, can experience a personalized melody, just as when an orchestra plays a unique score, according to the notes that resonate best with each instrument. This idea of personalization shows that, despite being a collective phenomenon, the spiritual dimension remains unique in each journey of faith. The inner symphony speaks directly to the heart, reflecting one's own pains, hopes, and longings. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. As we analyze the origins of this chant, we find mention in ancient mystical manuscripts, which speak of heavenly harmonies accompanying prophecies and visions. Traditionally, in many religious traditions, sounds and music were seen as means of elevating the spirit and bringing humanity closer to God. In Medjugorje, this ancient heritage seems to gain new life, reinvigorated by the light of the apparitions. From this understanding, we can see that the phenomenon is not isolated from the history of great mystical revelations, but is part of a continuous flow of connection between the human and the transcendent. However, the uniqueness of this inner song lies in the way it presents itself, without instruments, without written scores, but with a convening power capable of uniting hearts yearning for meaning. This invisible yet vibrant characteristic gives the place its own identity, creating an atmosphere of mystery and constant anticipation. This is why so many pilgrims report feeling a shift in mindset as soon as they set foot on the hill, a kind of inner awakening that precedes the rational understanding of its messages. The apparitions, therefore, do not occur in a sonic void, but in a setting richly woven by these melodies that inform and inspire. With each intangible note, the perception of prophecy takes shape. It is as if, even before the words are spoken, the soul is already ready to hear and embrace the message. This process connects directly to the themes of transformation and revelation that we will explore later, as the inner chant acts as an internal battery that drives our emotions and prepares us to absorb the hidden truth that follows. This sound phenomenon is so powerful that many scholars consider it a barometer of faith. The clearer and more persistent the inner song, the more intense becomes the conviction that we are facing something genuinely divine. It is at this point that the importance of understanding the inner song combines with the purpose of these unrevealed messages, deciphering the meaning of each note, discovering how it illuminates the decisions we make on our journey of faith, and, most importantly, recognizing the transformative impact it has on our hearts. Now, before we dive into the 7 messages, I invite you to reflect on your own experience. Have you ever felt some kind of connection that transcended the physical senses? That feeling that something greater speaks directly to your spirit, even without emitting an audible sound. This is the power of inner chanting, and it is on this frequency that we will build the next revelations. Comment. This makes sense to me ever since. On the clear morning of June 24, 1981, 6 teenagers from the small village of Medjugorje gathered near the hill called Podbrdo. An extraordinary phenomenon began to transform that corner of Bosnia and Herzegovina into one of the most enigmatic centers of faith in the world. They were just ordinary children, living the simple daily life of the countryside, when they reported seeing a radiant lady enveloped in light, as if inhabiting a threshold between heaven and earth. Soon, the news spread throughout the surrounding area and, soon to the 4 corners of the planet, bringing pilgrims drawn by the promise of a mystical experience that went beyond vision. An inner song so intense that many swore they heard it. The inhabitants of Medjugorje went from curious spectators to protagonists of a story that would connect the global community to the mysteries of spirituality. Commerce flourished. Roads were rebuilt to accommodate caravans of believers and journalists, and nights of prayer on the hill became a sacred ritual. with candelabras flickering in the moonlight and chants sung in dozens of languages. Yet what was most striking was not the hubbub of the crowds, but the meaningful silence that hung over each apparition, as if, even before the words were spoken, an invisible prelude filled hearts. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. The truth is that many of the first witnesses understood the weight of that moment only after feeling the inner song. It was as if the earth itself vibrated in tune with the supernatural, inviting each person to align their mindset to a higher frequency. When I felt those notes dancing within me, I realized that the world I knew would never be the same, confided Ivan Dragosevich, one of the first visionaries, in an interview with Faith Today magazine. According to him, the melody emerged, unpredictably, sometimes soft as a whisper of breeze, sometimes as sweeping as a calm thunderclap, and always brought a sense of urgency. A call to transformation that surpassed any rational description. The impact on the local community was immediate. Families who had never traveled outside Medjugorje began welcoming pilgrims into their homes, offering a small piece of bread and witnessing the behind the scenes of a divine event. The Church of St. James, in the center of the village, became the stage for daily masses, with faithful investments and accents as varied as the notes of a global symphony. Yet, amid the emotion of the crowds, a desire to go beyond the outward spectacle was evident. They needed to understand the deeper meaning of that hymn, the reason why it arose precisely there, on that seemingly inhospitable hill. Over the years, scholars from various disciplines, theology, psychology, anthropology, gathered to dissect every fragment of the experience. Some spoke of mystical euphoria, others of collective hallucination, but most leaned toward the hypothesis of a genuine phenomenon whose emotional impact catalyzed decisions toward inner renewal. Gradually, the concept of hidden truth became central, the idea that, behind the external glimpse of the apparition, there existed a sound code capable of touching hearts at different stages of spiritual seeking. Father Slavko Barber, who witnessed the apparitions from their earliest days, described the environment as a laboratory of grace. There, every prayer, every tear, every ember of hope reverberated in a song that no one wrote down, but that everyone could feel. According to him, the invisible sound served as a bridge between the human and the transcendent, likening itself to a translator that converted anguish into relief, doubt into conviction. It was from this perception that studies began to emerge, detailing the patterns of the internal notes, relating them to periods of liturgical celebration, natural cycles, and even the psychology of conversion. Among veteran pilgrims, many report having returned to Medjugorje dozens of times in search of a new symphony, believing that the melody evolves according to their own transformations. It's as if each visit were a new chapter in an intimate journey, where the subtle music serves as a guide for crucial decisions, giving up an addiction, forgiving someone, redirecting a career, or simply renewing one's faith. The collective effect further enhances this sensation. In the communion of thousands of hearts, the silent voices merge and create something greater than the sum of their parts, recalling the essence of a universal choir. And it was in this context of incessant searching that the 7 unrevealed messages began to emerge, communicated not by audible words, but by the nuances of inner song. Each chord carried with it a fragment of divine will, an invitation to embrace conversion, fraternity, perseverance, and hope. The community, eager for meaning, began to interpret the sonic nuances as indicators of upcoming instructions. A deeper tone indicated the need for deep reflection, while a higher-pitched breath signaled urgent decision-making. But above all, the phenomenon challenged the very way we understand revelation, no longer restricted to scrolls or prophets, but also present in the subtle vibration that permeates silence. From then on, scholars began to seek parallels in ancient traditions, finding echoes of heavenly music in Sufi manuscripts, late Greek hymns, and even Egyptian records that spoke of harmonies from beyond. These findings reinforced the idea that the inner song of Medjugorje is not an isolated event, but part of a spiritual legacy that spans centuries and cultures. Now, as you sense these historical contours and connect with the seer's narratives, prepare to discover how each of these spiritual melodies shapes the 7 still hidden messages. This journey behind the scenes of faith is far from over, as the true symphony is about to unfold in each facet of this story. Comment below. This makes sense to me. The inner song reveals itself in ways so subtle and yet so powerful that many Medjugorje visionaries claim they cannot describe it in words, but feel it reverberating throughout their being. Some compare it to a gentle echo, almost like a whisper that grows from within, touching every neuron and awakening sensations that transcend mere hearing. Unlike ordinary sounds, like the rumble of cars on the street or the occasional hum of urban traffic, these mystical melodies seem to emerge from a place beyond the ears, an inner source that pulsates at its own frequency, engaging mind and heart in a dance of transformation. While a normal person might mistake this phenomenon for tinnitus or a simple whistling in the head, the inner chant carries an emotional weight and clarity that cannot be ignored. The fundamental difference lies in the quality of this perception. Instead of a shallow noise, it is a series of vibrant notes, each imbued with intentions that shape the spiritual journey. Some describe the experience as a silent dialogue, in which the sound vibration acts as a translator of hidden truths, penetrating layers of doubt to reveal a serene authority that simultaneously calms and compels. In accounts carefully catalogued by scholars of mystical psychology, one finds testimonies of visionaries who, in moments of profound prayer, feel the chant intensify as they raise their prayers. It is as if each mental syllable, prayer, forgiveness, light receives a harmonic accompaniment, transforming internal words into chords that resonate in the body and spirit. This distinct dynamic breaks the barrier between the internal and the external. The sound is not out there, but neither does it remain confined to the inner sanctuary. It expands, alters the perception of space, and redefines the sense of presence. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Observing the phenomenon behind the scenes of spiritual research, we see that common auditory sensations are limited to physical stimuli: wind, rain, crickets at night, while spiritual manifestations involve a series of combined physiological and emotional reactions. It's not uncommon for a follower to feel chills, tingling, and an inner warmth when hearing the invisible notes. Croatian journalist Marija Pavlovic, one of the original visionaries, stated in a rare conference that she felt a flash of peace echoing along with the chant, a kind of resonance that purifies the mind and strengthens the courage to face crucial decisions in everyday life. This distinction between physical sound and mystical experience is also reflected in the way the internal narrative is constructed. While the noises of everyday life easily dissipate, one only needs to focus on a fixed point to forget them. Inner chant persists, as if dependent on an intimate agreement between the soul and the divine. It becomes evident in moments of stillness, when the external noise subsides and the heart opens to the mystery. The hidden truth, then, begins to manifest. The chant is a soundtrack that guides transformation, signals a new mindset, and illuminates the path to decisions shaped by faith. Many pilgrims report that during their first visits to Medjugorje, they could barely speak. So immersed were they in this invisible sound. It was as if the entire scene, the flickering candles, the voices chanting hymns, even the wind in the trees, converged into a single point of sonic energy. This fusion causes such a profound impact that it becomes difficult to distinguish whether the inner chant is the cause of the emotion or its effect. Some researchers call this phenomenon spiritual feedback, where emotion intensifies perception, and this perception, in turn, deepens the emotion, in a spiral of revelations that fuels the inner journey. Of course, some seek rational explanations. Neurology studies suggest that the human brain can generate auditory patterns in the absence of external stimuli, especially in states of deep concentration. However, such studies fail to explain why this inner symphony presents itself in such an orderly and meaningful way to all those who are already on Podberto Hill. Surrender to the silence of prayer. It's not just a cerebral phenomenon. It's an irresistible invitation to listen to the sacred voice, a call that transcends understanding and is anchored in the desire to connect with something greater. It is this distinction between ordinary perception and spiritual manifestation that makes the inner chant central to understanding the apparitions of Medjugorje. While ordinary sounds fill the air without a specific purpose, the mystical melodies lead to a state of receptivity to the 7 hidden messages, acting as a revelatory preview of each teaching. Ultimately, each invisible note carries a spark of wisdom meant to awaken the pilgrim to the divine purpose, be it healing, forgiveness, fraternity, or perseverance. As we explore these manifestations, we realize that the inner song also functions as an emotional thermometer. Its intensity reflects the openness of the heart, and its subtlety reveals areas still closed to the breath of grace. And it is in this dynamic of discovery that each individual finds a unique soundtrack, as personal as the way they make decisions in their daily lives, shaping their journey and their transformation. Now, with this clearer understanding of the differences between ordinary sound and mystical chant, we are ready to delve into the first nuances of this sonic experience and unravel how it prepares the ground for the unrevealed messages. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. The first hidden message of Medjugorje emerges as an irresistible call to profound conversion, an inner metamorphosis that challenges the way we approach our decisions and guides every step of our faith journey. This isn't a superficial change that passes with time or gets lost in routine. It's an invitation to dismantle old, ingrained beliefs, redefine priorities, and allow the hidden truth to reveal itself with all its transformative power. When this message resonates in the inner chant, it acts like a gentle shock that aligns our mindset to a purer frequency, opening space for hope and love to take root in every fiber of our being. Imagine the story of Anna, a woman who, before her first visit to Medjugorje, lived trapped in a routine of anxiety and resentment. In her daily expression, each breath carried the weight of past failures and the guilt of decisions that could no longer be undone. She worked endless hours, seeking in her professional performance a way to fill a void that seemed to be growing ever larger. At home, family arguments often sparked by small oversights turned into open wounds, fueling a spiral of hurt and resentment. Anna found herself trapped in a mindset focused exclusively on control, as if life only made sense when every detail was under her supervision, until, one summer day, she found herself on the hill of Podbrudo, ready to hear something beyond her own words. That as Anna quieted herself in prayer, she felt, for the first time, the inner song approaching, bringing a new acoustic to her heart. The invisible notes seemed to say, "It's time to be reborn, to leave behind everything that hinders your freedom." The message rang out clearly, though silently inviting her to let go of excessive control and trust in the flow of providence. In an instant, the chains of guilt began to dissolve, and Anna realized that true strength came not from absolute control, but from trusting surrender to divine designs. Personal transformation happened there. Tears of relief streamed down her face, washing away painful memories and making room for a new mindset, marked by forgiveness and acceptance. This example illustrates the impact the first message has on those who allow themselves to listen to it with an open heart. It is not empty instruction or moralistic advice. It is a revelation charged with spiritual authority, capable of altering the course of a life in a matter of seconds. In terms of transformation, this message acts as a catalyst, accelerating internal processes that we often insist on postponing: reconciliation with the past, the courage to make difficult decisions, and the awakening to a deeper truth that dwells within us. Deep down, we all carry shadow areas, old fears, and beliefs that condition our behavior. The profound conversion proposed here does not avoid this confrontation, but embraces it, inviting us to look within and face each shadow with the light of faith. Behind the scenes of this experience, accounts from other visionaries confirm the regenerative power of this message. Maria Pavlovic describes that, during the apparition, she felt not only the song, but a kind of wave of mercy that invaded her being, showing her fragments of her own story with compassion. For her, it was a moment of sudden revelations, where divine compassion refracted her pain, breathing new hope into it. Jakov Kolo, another of the early visionaries, confessed that he had to abandon a life project he considered essential, as the flame of conversion compelled him to choose a simpler path of service, more focused on charity and prayer. These voices converge to show that the invitation to inner change implies courageous decisions, sacrifices, and above all, conviction that life only reaches its full meaning when lived in harmony with divine will. This dynamic of rupture and reconstruction is part of the larger mosaic of the 7 unrevealed messages. The first message opens like a door that, once crossed, triggers a chain reaction of self-knowledge and transformation. In this movement, we realize that our old certainties can crumble to give way to a renewed faith, more explicit in our choices, and firmer in our trust. Each step taken toward profound conversion is, at the same time, a step toward an inner freedom that surpasses any material success, of freedom that invites us to live with purpose, to make decisions guided by eternal values, not by fleeting conveniences. Transformation, therefore, is not just a concept. It is a tangible experience, manifested in the courage to forgive those who have hurt us, in the willingness to give up harmful habits, in the desire to serve others without expecting recognition. When the inner symphony translates this message, invitation to profound conversion, it creates a scenario where the soul feels heard, valued, and motivated to act. The mystical melody becomes an internal guide, a radio station that tunes our frequency to higher waves of peace, hope, and love. The historical context and behind-the-scenes history of Medjugorje show that this message is not just a one-off occurrence, but a recurring pattern. Countless pilgrims report that, even after returning to their routines, they maintain an inner flame of continual renewal. It's as if the invisible song has become a personal mantra, reminding them daily of the invitation to conversion. Many begin to awaken with a sense of spiritual urgency, feeling the need to redirect their energies toward noble causes, more genuine relationships, and a more consistent prayer life. Now, with our hearts warmed by these revelations, we realize that the call to profound conversion is much more than an inspiring slogan. It is a concrete offer of inner transformation, capable of reshaping our mindset and inspiring actions that echo into eternity. Every courageous decision made under the inspiration of this message generates an impact that goes beyond us, fueling a current of grace that reaches families, communities, and entire generations. It is at this point that we understand the breadth of the phenomenon. It is not just about hearing a hymn, but about allowing it to forever change the way we relate to the divine and the world around us. Now, following this trail of revelations and awaiting the next messages that will unfold, I invite you to reflect. Faced with this invitation to profound conversion, what decision do you feel you need to make today to align your life with this frequency of love and forgiveness? Comment below. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. The second hidden message of Medjugorje delves into the sensitive terrain of the soul's wounds. revealing the urgency of forgiving and being forgiven as an essential part of our spiritual journey. When the inner song echoes this invitation, it acts as a sonorous balm, enveloping the emotional scars in a melody that conveys comfort and strength for transformation. This is not a hasty, superficial forgiveness, or one motivated only by a desire for immediate peace, but a profound process that requires courage to face one's own pain and empathy to recognize the pain of others, allowing the heart to open to complete restoration. Imagine a scenario where someone carries the weight of old hurts, whether from harsh words exchanged within the family, romantic disappointments, or betrayals that left indelible marks. These emotional wounds often manifest as a knot in the chest, draining our vitality and distorting our mindset, influencing decisions that could lead us to a more fulfilling life. This is precisely where the inner chant comes in. It emerges as an internal soundtrack that, by aligning with the rhythm of our breathing, reminds us that each invisible note carries the potential for healing and compassion. The difference between a discordant tone and a comforting harmony can mean the shift from a state of bitterness to one of renewal. Behind the scenes of this phenomenon, spirituality scholars point out that forgiveness is not just a moral issue, but a strategy for emotional and physical liberation. Positive psychology research indicates that individuals who practice regular forgiveness experience lower stress levels, lower blood pressure, and greater resistance to disease. When we combine this scientific data with the mystical experience of inner chanting, we have a striking scenario, a sound frequency that, combined with a sincere intention to forgive, enhances the impact of reconciliation. In this context, the hidden truth reveals itself. Forgiveness is not a favor we do for others, but a gift we offer ourselves, opening space for the peace that connects us to the divine. When we listen to the accounts of visionaries, we find moving testimonies. Mirjana Dragicevic, for example, described in her memoirs how she felt the inner song envelop every fragment of her personal history, touching especially the wounds caused by family conflicts. I heard the melody envelop my most painful memories, and suddenly I felt like crying, not out of sadness, but out of relief, out of gratitude for the forgiveness I myself needed to grant to those who had hurt me. The melody, she said, did not hide the pain, but transformed its intensity, converting the weight of the hurt into a gentle current that led the heart to the embrace of mercy. This experience is not exclusive to the original visionaries. Pilgrims of various nationalities report that, during prayer vigils in Podbrodo, they felt a sonic pulse that seemed synchronized with their own heartbeats, leading them to moments of profound repentance and public gestures of reconciliation. One group of visitors even spontaneously organized a forgiveness circle, where each person, sitting in a circle, spoke of their pain and received a symbolic blessing, all to the rhythm of a chant that no one sang vocally, but which everyone felt. In their spirit, this collective attunement demonstrated how the phenomenon is not restricted to the individual, but reflects the communal dimension of faith and mutual care. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. When we operate in the intimate space of forgiveness, we release not only the person who hurt us, but also ourselves from repetitive behaviors that keep emotional wounds alive. Converting this cycle of pain into a current of compassion has a transformative effect on our relationships, our productivity, our creativity, and even our health. The internal melody, in this process, acts as a divine metronome that maintains the rhythm of healing, reminding us that each time we choose to embrace another rather than reject, we align our frequency with that of kindness and mercy. In terms of revelations, this movement of forgiveness constitutes an essential step for receiving the following messages. While the first message invited us to convert our mindset, relinquishing absolute control, the second urges us to cleanse the inner terrain, eliminating weeds of resentment and bitterness so that the seeds of grace can sprout. It is a process of spiritual cleansing that reverberates in the body and mind, generating clarity for important decisions and strengthening the bond with the divine presence that sustains each note of the inner song. Reports from scholars in religious studies point out that many ancient traditions already recognized the healing power of sound, from the sacred chants of Tibetan monks to Gregorian choral chants, and even Sufi practices of remembrance of God. The use of specific intonations to induce states of peace and transformation has been present for millennia. Medjugorje brings this heritage to the modern context. But with a twist, the inner chant is not performed by a choir or instrument, but emerges naturally within each seeker, like a hidden truth waiting to be revealed. The impact of this phenomenon on each of our journeys is profound. By practicing forgiveness, we become less reactive, more compassionate, and better able to make decisions aligned with our deepest values. True inner freedom only blossoms when we let go of the weight of past offenses and allow ourselves to walk lightly, with our hearts open to what is yet to come. It is at this point that we realize the full breadth of the divine invitation. It is not about offering a simple gesture of courtesy, but about reconfiguring our psychology, our spirituality, and our way of being in the world. Now, with our wounds gently enveloped by the mystical melody, we feel the inner terrain prepared to receive the depth of the next instructions. the invisible soundtrack continues to guide our steps, suggesting that forgiveness is not the end, but the beginning of a new phase of discovery. Comment here. I'm on this journey to now. I want to delve even deeper into this subject. When the third hidden message of Medjugorje reaches the heart, it emerges as a bulwark of faith in the midst of the storm, an invisible chain that sustains the soul when everything around seems to crumble. In times of crisis, whether faced with unexpected losses, financial challenges, or illnesses that test our resilience, many wonder where to find the strength to carry on. It is at this point that the inner symphony, that subtle melody that pulses like a divine breath, takes center stage. It does not eliminate suffering, but gives meaning to chaos, transforming the impact of adversity into a catalyst for courage and rebirth. The inner voice does not shout, but resonates with a gentle authority that reinforces our conviction, reminding us that every difficulty carries a hidden purpose, ready to be revealed in the precise rhythm of the spiritual song. Imagine a family that, in just a few weeks, saw everything they had built disappear after a natural disaster. Homes destroyed, documents lost, dreams diluted amid the rubble. Yet, within each member's heart, there was a silent frequency that united them and drove them to continue, while the neighbors simply tried to survive. They allowed themselves to listen to the internal symphony, realizing that, between the notes, echoed a promise of reconstruction and hope. It wasn't a trick of the mind, nor foolish optimism, but a profound realization that, even in the darkness, there was an invitation to transformation, a shift in mindset that freed them from despair and led them to solidarity, resilience, and decisions guided by a love that transcends human logic. Studies in resilience psychology indicate that individuals who are able to assign meaning to their pain experience higher levels of well-being and greater resilience. But when we combine this scientific discovery with the mystical experience of inner chanting, we perceive something even more comprehensive. It's not just about finding meaning. It's about feeling connected to a source of energy that supports, guides choices, and renews the confidence that tomorrow can be different. In other words, the invisible sound acts as a discreet mentor, reminding us, behind the scenes of our consciousness, that we have the power to rebuild our lives. In personal accounts, visionaries like Jakov Kolo describe moments when their faith seemed to fade in the face of suffering, only to be rekindled by an inner chord that emerged at the precise moment when the entire emotional foundation threatened to crumble. He recounts that, during a difficult time, he felt the chant grow in intensity, enveloping him like a spiral of sonorous light that impelled him to reject discouragement and embrace trust in a hidden truth. God does not drive away the storm, but walks with us through the rain, transforming each drop into an instrument of healing. This teaching, though silent, has a monumental impact on the decisions we make on our journey of faith, for it leads us to choose attitudes of gratitude and solidarity over forms of revenge or isolation. The inner symphony, when activated by the third message, also acts as an indicator of spiritual health. The more present we allow ourselves to be, the more clearly we perceive the healing rhythm that guides our steps. Often, people experiencing profound crises report an inner warmth, a tingling of hope that grows with the chant, bringing to the surface psychological and spiritual resources that previously seemed dormant. It's as if, by tapping into the correct frequency of faith, we activate an internal support system capable of modulating our emotions and sustaining our minds in the face of the unexpected. This reality transcends the boundaries of organized religion, reaching those who, even without belonging to a specific group, recognize the presence of something greater shaping their destiny. In the historical context of Medjugorje, we observe that the local community, recently shaken by conflict and political uncertainty, found refuge in the inner symphony that helped them maintain social cohesion. While the outside world seemed to plunge into despair, pilgrims who joined in nightly vigils reported feeling the mystical melody enveloping each wounded heart, granting a clarity of spirit that impelled them to look at others with greater empathy. This atmosphere became a laboratory of faith, where decisions made based on trust proved to be true acts of transformation, impacting not only individual lives but the destiny of an entire community. At the heart of this phenomenon lies the hidden truth that adversity can be fertile ground for a deeper faith, as long as we are willing to listen to the silent orchestra vibrating within us. Each chord, each resonance, conveys a veiled guidance, suggesting paths and possibilities that would otherwise be lost to the rational mind. It is an invitation to abandon the false security of absolute certainties and embrace the journey of continuous discovery, in which crises are not mere obstacles, but vital revelations that awaken dormant talents and fertilize our capacity to love. Now, with this new perspective on how to strengthen faith in adversity, we feel that every challenge can become an opportunity for growth, and that behind every inner note lies a transformative message ready to guide us forward. Comment below. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. The fourth hidden message of Medjugorje reveals the urgency of persevering in constant prayer, of transforming each moment into a continuous dialogue with the divine. It's not just about reciting prayers like a mechanical ritual, but about cultivating a permanent attunement, letting the inner melody guide every breath and every decision. When the invisible song joins our cry, a favorable environment is born for faith to be strengthened in the face of contrary winds, for hope to remain alive, even when logic pushes us to discouragement. It is in this sacred frequency that we discover the spiritual discipline that differentiates the simple believer from the one who truly walks with Christ on the journey of transformation. Imagine a farmer who waters his land every day to see the seeds he planted flourish. Constant prayer acts like this revitalizing water. Without it, even the most fertile soil would inevitably dry out, and the most promising shoots would wither. In Medjugorje, countless pilgrims comment that their inner song intensifies when they heave a sigh of supplication. And even after returning home, they continue to hear this symphony throughout the day, as if each daily challenge were a new reason to renew their conversation with heaven. This daily practice generates an invisible but profound impact on the mindset of those who adopt it, transforming their spirit and enabling decisions guided not by fear or uncertainty, but by unshakable trust in providence. Spirituality. Researchers, such as Professor Claire Templeton of the University of Glasgow, point out that the discipline of frequent prayer creates neural patterns of gratitude and positivity, which translate into greater resilience and mental clarity. When we combine this scientific finding with the mystical experience of inner chanting, we obtain a striking picture. Each sincere prayer acts as an invisible thread, connecting our heart to the center of hidden truth, opening space for new revelations that can change the course of our journeys. It is no exaggeration to say that persistent dialogue with the divine can redefine our way of thinking, reshape our values, and refine our choices, aligning them with the higher frequency of love and mercy. In accounts from visionaries, constant prayer is compared to a compass that maintains the rhythm of a spiritual symphony, preventing us from losing our focus when worldly distractions try to divert us from focus. Vika Ivankovic, one of the original visionaries, once described how she felt her inner song pulsate more intensely when, in the midst of a chaotic week of commitments, she set aside just a few seconds for silent prayer. It was as if, in that instant, the entire universe fell silent to hear and answer me, she said in an interview for a European documentary. This testimony shows that it doesn't take grand actions or long vigils to keep the flame of prayer alive. It's enough to keep the heart's frequency attuned to the source of grace. Behind the scenes of this phenomenon, scholars of religious history find valuable parallels from the deserters of ancient Egypt, who sought solitude for intimate conversations with God, to the monks of the East, who chanted repeated mantras to keep their minds focused. Humanity has always discovered that constant prayer is the lever that lifts the spirit above circumstances. In Medjugorje, however, the novelty lies in the fact that the mystical melody is present even in modern deserts, offices, schools, hospitals, if only the believer is willing to pay attention to the inner song and respond with a sigh of faith. This pulsating practice of prayer not only deepens our relationship with the divine but also shapes our journey of faith, influencing how we relate to others. When we learn to constantly dialogue with the source of all mercy, we discover that our words and actions begin to radiate compassion and humility. Persistence in prayer is reflected in kinder decisions, a service-oriented mindset, and a positive impact on the environments in which we live. It is not uncommon that, after experiencing the inner song strengthening their prayer discipline, an individual begins to dedicate more time to volunteering, offering comfort to those who suffer, and adopting a posture of true fraternity. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. By examining the origins of this call to constant prayer, we realize that it is intrinsically linked to the urgency of unrevealed messages. Every stage of conversion, every act of forgiveness, and every strengthening of faith in the midst of adversity finds its support in uninterrupted attunement with the divine. The discipline of constant prayer serves as the backbone of a holistic transformation, laying the foundation upon which all other revelations can flourish. In this rhythm, each person experiences a process of continuous renewal, discovering that the inner song is not an isolated event, but a permanent resource for overcoming doubts, protecting hope, and guiding decisions in a way that is consistent with the designs of love. Behind this invitation lies a wonderful truth: the divine dwells not only in extraordinary moments, but in every instant of our daily lives. It is possible to hear the mystical symphony while washing dishes, lead an inner chant during a work break, or transform anxiety into prayer as we lie down at night. Persevering in this continuous dialogue doesn't require complex formulas, but a heart willing to tune into the eternal radio of divine love, and as this habit strengthens, we feel an inner lightness that replaces the weight of anguish, a clarity that dispels indecision, and a peace that calms the mind even in the midst of turbulence. This movement of incessant prayer has direct effects. On our faith journey, it generates a cumulative impact, a kind of spiritual credit that allows us to face difficult choices with confidence. Each moment of dialogue with God adds energy and discernment, and the internal melody that accompanies this practice becomes a thermometer of our intimacy with the sacred. For this reason, understanding the importance of constant prayer is fundamental. 2. Deciphering the upcoming messages. For without this foundation of attunement, we run the risk of misinterpreting the mystical notes and drawing superficial conclusions. Now, as we absorb the depth of this call to perseverance in prayer, we open the floodgates to receive something even more revealing. Comment: this makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. The fifth hidden message of Medjugorje emerges as an invitation to be light in the darkness of the world. A call for each of us to become a beacon of hope amidst the darkness that tries to obscure the hidden truth. Imagine yourself as a unique, musical instrument whose tone shines brightest when the surrounding environment is plunged into shadow. Just as a high note stands out amidst low chords, your faith, when fueled by your inner melody, can resonate clearly and inspire those around you, transforming the impact of adverse situations into a concert of compassion and solidarity. In times of uncertainty, whether social crises, family conflicts, or internal tensions, many voices are lost in the chaos, echoing discouragement and fear. But when you let your inner song guide your actions, you begin to emit a higher frequency, capable of piercing many hearts and awakening a spark of hope where everything seems stagnant. It's as if, by tuning your vibration to the divine notes, you become part of an invisible orchestra, rehearsing the harmony of good decisions, a gesture of kindness that sounds like a gentle percussion beat, a smile that spreads like a violin chord, an act of generosity that explodes like a trumpet chord in the silence of despair. A true lighthouse doesn't erase the darkness of others, but it makes it seem less impenetrable, revealing a path of light. In studies on servant leadership, researchers emphasize that individuals who cultivate altruistic attitudes in critical moments inspire far greater change than fiery speeches. By combining this concept with the mystical experience of inner song, we understand that being a light is not an empty metaphor. It is a practical commitment reflected in our daily choices, our mindset toward good, and our willingness to forge paths where obstacles once stood. Behind the scenes of the apparitions, there are accounts of pilgrims who, upon returning to their daily lives, noticed that the inner song continued to pulsate. When they encountered someone in despair, these accounts show that the mystical melody acts as a constant reminder, gently urging the heart to make decisions that liberate rather than imprison, that build bridges rather than erect walls. This is how a teacher experiencing depression decided to start a community project supporting vulnerable youth. Guided not by a pre-planned plan, but by the inspiration he heard internally while praying in Medjugorje, each word of encouragement he uttered seemed charged with a special resonance, as if he held the score of a major symphony in his hands. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. The musical metaphor expands when we think of our emotions as different instruments in a grand, spiritual orchestra. When we allow the inner song to delicately articulate each feeling, we prevent dissonant fear from dominating the ensemble, replacing it with notes of courage and perseverance. Thus, even in the midst of situations of injustice or sadness, we can choose to play chords of compassion, creating an atmosphere where the pain of others finds solace and despair becomes an opportunity. For healing, you don't need to be a maestro or have an artistic calling to emit this light. Simply focus on your inner dialogue with the divine and let the mystical melody refine your perception, thus also fine-tuning your actions. Each time you choose to listen instead of judge, each time you choose understanding over criticism, you light the beacon of hope in territory that once seemed hostile. Real life becomes a dynamic score, where every gesture becomes a measure of transformation, every word a verse of encouragement, and every decision a refrain of shared love. The impact of this light is immediate and lasting. Social neuroscience. Studies indicate that acts of generosity activate areas of the brain linked to pleasure and connection, creating a virtuous cycle that strengthens emotional resilience. Combined with the inner chant, this scientific discovery reinforces the idea that our inner symphony not only inspires others but also nourishes our own journey, promoting well-being, clarity of purpose, and a collective mindset. When multiple beacons are lit simultaneously, networks of hope are formed that transcend cultural and linguistic barriers, uniting entire communities around noble causes. This phenomenon reveals that the fifth message of Medjugorje is not just an individual call, but a collective appeal for us to compose a global concert of transformation together. The inner melody teaches us that true revolution comes not from external confrontations, but from the internal resonance of love and mercy, radiated by simple yet powerful actions. And it is in this cadence that the community is renewed. For, by touching each other's heartstrings, we generate a symphony of hope that echoes for generations. Now, as you absorb this understanding of being light in the darkness, feeling the lullaby of the inner melody guiding your feelings and decisions, prepare to delve into the sixth message, where spiritual fraternity will reveal itself as the perfect harmony of multiple voices united in a single song. Comment: this makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. The sixth hidden message of Medjugorje calls us to unite in fraternity, revealing that the power of shared prayer transcends individual barriers and creates a symphony of faith capable of transforming realities. While the individual inner song attunes our soul to divine frequencies, the collective song rises like an immense orchestra, where each voice, however soft, adds an indispensable note to total harmony. It's not just about praying side by side, but about allowing our intentions to intertwine in an invisible bond of solidarity, which amplifies the impact of grace and creates an environment conducive to revelations that dwell behind the scenes of the spiritual world. When several people share a moment of prayer, they create a resonance effect that social psychology research has already shown to be powerful. Studies indicate that groups engaged in collective practice experience greater cohesion, increased empathy, and more lasting results in personal transformation. In Medjugorje, this is evident during the night vigils in Podbrdo, when thousands of pilgrims, coming from different cultures, languages, and backgrounds, converge on a common purpose and, by uniting in silent prayers or sung hymns, create an environment where the inner melody of each heart merges with the mystical melody that lingers in the air. True fraternity, in this context, does not eliminate distinctions, but rather values them, forming a choir where every voice matters and every gesture of faith contributes to the greater concert. Imagine a moment when, on a cold night, thousands of lit candles waver like a sea of light, and each person, gazing up at the hill, whispers an intention to the rhythm of their own pulse. In moments, the silence is filled with a powerful synchronicity, as if different hearts beat in unison, driven by a hidden truth they recognize without needing to articulate it in words. It is at this point that personal decisions of forgiveness, renunciation of ego, and spiritual surrender gain new momentum, as each individual feels part of a network of divine support. The collective energy amplifies the ability to maintain a mindset focused on conversion and compassion, making it easier to face conflicts, crises, and doubts. Knowing we are not alone on our journey, behind-the-scenes stories of moving stories confirm this phenomenon. In a recent encounter reported by Maria, a Brazilian pilgrim, she recounted that, after months of anguish over the health of a family member, she brought her prayer to the vigil. At first, her voice felt weak amidst the din of the chants, but gradually, she realized that the inner notes of those around her were rising to a frequency that encompassed her own cry, making her feel more supported and confident. This mystical solidarity was not limited to the collective act of prayer. Days later, she says, she received news of an unexpected improvement in her clinical condition, which she attributed to the power of a common chant of united hearts. This communal dimension of faith, evidenced by unity in fraternity, is also reflected in charitable and service initiatives. Inspired by the shared sonic experience, groups of volunteers who participated in the apparitions began organizing support activities in their hometowns, bringing the mystical melody to orphanages, hospitals, and rehabilitation centers. By seeing each life as an essential note in the cosmic score, they understood that the collective inner song extends beyond the walls of the sanctuary, becoming tangible gestures of love and relief for those most in need. This process proves that communal prayer is not a passive act, but a driver of social impact. Neuroscience research shows that neural activation during the practice of shared compassion increases feelings of well-being and reduces anxiety, creating a solid emotional foundation for choices consistent with high values. To the sound of the internal melody that echoes alongside other voices, we are led to decisions aligned with solidarity, justice, and fraternity. It's as if each individual score merges into a universal symphony, whose notes transcend space and time, resonating in decisions that transform concrete realities. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. As we examine the historical origins of communal prayer practices, we find records in various traditions: the liturgical assemblies of early Christians, Dhikr circles in Sufism, and healing circles among indigenous peoples, all driven by an ancient intuition that the union of voices reveals a higher frequency of spirituality. In Medjugorje, this ancient heritage gains new expression, as the inner symphony intensifies when shared, bringing revelations that call for attentive hearts willing to collaborate with one another. The message of fraternity is not directed solely to the individual, but to the global community of believers, proposing that, by forming a chorus of thanksgiving, supplication, and praise, we activate a divine support network capable of intervening in situations where human logic is insufficient. This communal vision is echoed in the transformative experiences reported by those who, after experiencing the power of collective song, began to rethink their life priorities. Many reveal that before Medjugorje, they lived lives centered on personal achievements and success goals, but upon realizing the power of a chorus of hearts, they understood that true fulfillment comes from serving others. Decisions to privatize love less and share resources more become natural when we experience the invisible sound that connects us to a greater fraternity. The journey, then, ceases to be a solitary path and becomes a shared one. where each step resonates in the collective consciousness, creating an impact that reverberates across families, communities, and generations. The call to unity and fraternity, reinforced by the sixth hidden message, transcends the concept of simple cooperation. It challenges each believer to recognize their own voice as part of a universal song of healing and hope. The collective inner melody does not eliminate our differences, but harmonizes them, transforming dissonances into beautiful chords of reconciliation. When many voices rise in unison, we discover that there is no obstacle too great for the divine symphony, for we are strengthened by the certainty that, together, we echo the hidden truth that guides our lives. Now nourished by the experience of this sonic communion, we feel ready to explore the seventh message, in which we will be invited to prepare for a great sign that will culminate in a culmination of revelations and transformations. Comment: I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. The seventh hidden message of Medjugorje arrives as an irresistible invitation to prepare for the great sign, a final symphony that will bring together everything we have experienced thus far and will serve as the culmination of a journey of faith, transformation, and revelation. This message is not merely a distant prediction, but an urgent call to align every thought, every decision, and every action with the frequency of the inner song that has, until now, guided our conversion, our forgiveness, our perseverance, our constant prayer, our light in the darkness, and our fraternity. Now, in anticipation of this great sign, we are invited to assume a posture of spiritual vigilance, where each gesture becomes a note composing the orchestra of a divine purpose that will be realized in a surprising way. When we reflect on prophecies, we often imagine grandiose images, signs in the heavens, or extraordinary phenomena that unfold spectacularly. However, preparation for the great sign, according to this message, begins in the simplest details of our daily lives, in mindfulness of the needs of others, in coherence between words and actions, in the willingness to listen to our inner melody even amidst the daily noise. It is a silent and powerful process, for it requires a mindset of readiness, a conscious decision to keep the flame of faith burning so that, when the apex arrives, we can recognize it without hesitation, like a final note that concludes a musical movement but also announces a new concert. Behind the scenes of this preparation, scholars of spiritual eschatology warn that the great sign is not merely an external event, but a moment of convergence between human and eternal time, in which the divine becomes palpable to those whose hearts are attuned. The musical analogy extends. Just as a musician tunes his instrument before a decisive performance, we tune our souls through the practices we learn: deep conversion, forgiveness, faith in adversity, unceasing prayer, fraternal light, and communions, that, at the moment of the great sign, every inner chord reverberates in perfect harmony. This fine-tuning will allow us to grasp the hidden truth that transcends words and manifest in our daily lives. The impact of this prophetic event. Among the seer's accounts, we find descriptions of a profound peace anticipating the culminating moment, as if the inner chant gained volume and clarity, preparing the emotional and spiritual ground to receive something greater. Some say that, shortly before the great sign, they felt a preliminary melody sounding in unison with the pulse of the universe, as if the cosmos itself awaited, in expectant silence, the beginning of a new era of grace and revelation. This preview does not generate fear, but rather a serene expectation, for it announces that the entire previous journey was not in vain. Each transformation, each decision aligned with the divine, brings with it the promise of a glorious unfolding. The preparation for this culmination also has a collective dimension, as the great signal will touch hearts around the world, awakening a universal awareness of hope and responsibility. It is as if, by rehearsing together during prayer vigils and moments of communion, we are composing, note by note, a global symphony that will resonate at the right time, breaking down barriers of selfishness, individualism, and hopelessness. The impact of this experience will echo in the decisions of leaders, in solidarity between nations, and in the way humanity perceives its own vocation to care for one another and the planet we inhabit in our everyday lives. This message invites each of us to review our emotional and spiritual baggage, to identify all the dissonances that could impede the clear reception of the great signal. It's a process of fine-tuning where courage, humility, and attention serve as internal regulators, ensuring that our non-oscillated emotions become a collective work of art. The transformation doesn't end here. On the contrary, it intensifies, as this apex approaches, requiring us to make decisions that benefit not only ourselves, but also the well-being of entire communities. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Preparing for the great sign is not a passive preparation, but an active journey, filled with choices that shape our mindset and define the quality of our actions. It means daring to love more, forgiving deeply, praying incessantly, keeping hope alive, and nurturing fraternity as the foundation of all initiatives. And by keeping the inner melody alive, we ensure that every act, every word, and every intention is infused with the highest frequency of compassion and hidden truth, ready to reflect the brilliance of the great sign when it manifests. Along this journey, we understood that the great sign is not a separate event from our personal history, but the culmination of a story we wrote together, note by note, gesture by gesture. Every unrevealed message of Medjugorje converged on this momentous final invitation for us, united in symphony, to witness the manifestation of a love that surpasses all expectations and forever transforms the course of our journey. As we feel the crescendo of this experience, let us open our hearts, tune our souls, and let the inner chant prepare us for supreme harmony. Comment: this makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. As we look at the 7 unrevealed messages of Medjugorje, we realize how each note of the inner song weaved a unique journey of transformation, capable of touching the most sensitive chords of our being. First came the call to profound conversion, that gentle shock that impels us to leave behind old beliefs and embrace a renewed mindset, as if each invisible chord invited us to be reborn. Next came the healing of the wounds of the soul, when the mystical melody enveloped our most painful scars, instigating forgiveness and empathy, and showing that, in the grand score of life, to forgive is to release the burden and create space for peace. Then, we learned to strengthen faith in adversity. Amidst crises and uncertainty, the inner song rose like an invisible shield, revealing that every challenge can become a ground of hope if we allow ourselves to be guided by those notes of silent trust. It wasn't long before we learned about perseverance in constant prayer, when we discovered that maintaining an open dialogue with the divine is a daily watering of the fertile soil of our soul, so that no seed of discouragement survives the drought of worldly concerns. The 5th message, the call to be light in the darkness, showed how our inner melody can radiate clarity and comfort, illuminating paths and renewing hearts, transforming each act of kindness into a luminous note that pierces the shadows of despair. Soon after, we were summoned to unite in fraternity, understanding that when multiple voices harmonize in a collective song, waves of empathy and solidarity are created that resonate far beyond the physical space of a hill, reaching entire communities and building bridges of reconciliation. Finally, we arrive at the preparation for the great sign, an urgent invitation to tune our soul like a valuable instrument, attentive to every nuance of the inner song, so as to recognize, at the right moment, the apex of this prophetic symphony. It is in this interweaving of revelations that we understand the power of the phenomenon. It is not a matter of disconnected notes, but of a divine concert where each message builds upon the next, forming an arc of transformation that ranges from the awakening of the heart to the culmination of a supernatural intervention. The hidden truth, then, manifests itself as a sonic fabric that gives meaning to our decisions, shapes our mindset, and awakens within us the desire to live in communion with the greater mystery that dwells within each note. As we reflect on each stage of this journey, we are invited to listen to our own spiritual melody and recognize how these teachings resonate in our daily lives. Perhaps you detect, in your memories, a moment when you felt the weight of old grudges dissolve with a sudden clarity of forgiveness. Or perhaps you recall a difficult situation in which, almost without realizing it, you turned to prayer as a constant refuge, feeling supported by a gentle and persistent presence. These insights are not mere daydreams. They are signs that the inner song is alive within us, ready to guide us in the most crucial decisions, to inspire us to act with courage, humility, and compassion. Behind the scenes of this experience, scholars in religious science and spiritual neurology point out that the combination of practices such as forgiveness, continuous prayer, and communion in fraternity activates brain circuits of well-being, reduces stress, and expands our capacity for empathy and conscious choice. By combining this scientific understanding with the mystical experience of inner song, we discover a powerful alliance between reason and faith, which strengthens our journey of self-knowledge and prepares us to receive even deeper revelations. Each message acts as a rung on a spiritual ladder, the final stage of which places us before the great sign, with attuned hearts and open minds to the hidden truth that resides in the final symphony. As we prepare for this decisive stage, it's worth taking a moment to reflect. Which chord of the inner song has resonated most with you so far? Which message has had such a profound impact that you feel it pulsating in your choices and relationships? The spiritual melody that inhabits your heart is singular, but it connects to the universal chorus of hope seekers. For each voice, however small, adds a unique brilliance to the divine orchestra. By recognizing your own attunement, you become more aware of the transformative power you carry within it, power capable of renewing your life and touching the lives of those who cross your path. If these messages touched your heart, leave a comment with the inner melody that touched your soul the most, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this mystical chant. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the bell so you don't miss the next secrets of Medjugorje. And now that you've made it this far, I sincerely thank you for walking with me on this symphony of discovery. If you felt these messages touched your soul, leave a I'm with you until the end. Comment. It's a beautiful way to let us know we're on this journey together. If this video brought you value and clarified some aspect of your faith, a like is always welcome, as it shows that we're connected and motivated to continue bringing you content that truly matters. And if you're not yet part of our community, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next reflections and secrets of Medjugorje. There's a video here that complements this topic, full of insights on how to keep the inner melody alive in your daily life. Click on it and stay with me there, as we'll delve even deeper into this dialogue with the divine together. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video.